Let me ask you a bit about cybersecurity in the context of the election. You were sounding the clarion throughout the campaign, that you were worried about the role that Russia might be playing in the campaign, indeed in the election, and a huge issue was a states' rights issue. Voting is still very much in the purview of the states. And I gather they pushed back against you when you suggested they be more aware of that. How do we change that system? How big a fault is that in our electoral system that things are still done at a state-by-state basis?
So what happened last year was when we were seeing this growing threat directed at state election systems, where there was this scanning and probing of voter registration databases, I went to the states. I had a conference call on August 15th, 2016, with every state election official. And we talked about two things. One, the possibility that I would use my authority as secretary to designate election infrastructure as critical infrastructure for purposes of cybersecurity. That I got a lot of resistance on because they misperceived that there was some kind of federal takeover of the election system. And so I put that on the back burner and I made that designation, but I did it after the election because I did not want it to be an election issue. In the meantime, however, we also encouraged them to come to us for cybersecurity assistance. And for the most part, they did. Red states, blue states, we got 33 states in, and we helped them with vulnerability assessments. We got 36 cities and counties in, all before the election. So that's a fairly good news story there, but there's a lot more work to be done. We raised the visibility of this issue in light of Russian hacking, but my concern is that we've talked about this issue a lot. The Washington Post and New York Times is all over this. But my worry is that our election infrastructure may be as vulnerable now as it was 10 months ago when Jim Clapper and I issued that statement accusing the Russian government of interfering in our election.
So what needs to happen here then in the context of these investigations, and there are many of them happening concurrently, Bob Mueller looking into interference, what would be the result you'd like to see where there would be actionable change here when it comes to preventative measures that would keep foreign actors from interfering with U.S. elections?
I believe we need to do a lot more to ensure that voter registration lists are entirely offline and that as little as possible, the election reporting process is entirely offline, and that we have a certain set of best practices that state election officials and systems will follow.